This is the most simple, basic, and to the point stats explained video I could come up with for the first Descendant. No fancy terms, no over-explained details, and the best of all, no time wasted in learning what I'm about to show you guys. This is what you see when you hover over any weapon in the game. For the weapon level, there's levels 1 through 100. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? For the weak point type, there's 3 weak points. Pierce, Crush, and Burst. Those are the 3 weak point types. What does weak point type mean? This is the type of damage your weapon does an increased amount of damage to specific weak point types on the enemies or Colossus. For basic reasons, here on the Stunning Beauty Colossus, the weak points are all shown here with its corresponding damage icon on how to destroy them quicker. But for the rest of her body, it is recommended to use a Crush type weapon. If you use a weapon with this base stat equipped, it will increase the damage because it's the correct weak point match. It will never debuff your weapon if not matched. That means going into this fight, you will need to equip both a burst weapon and a crush weapon in the weapon slots. As far as the third slot, you can do something different to compensate your other 2 weapons. For the weapon classes, there's handgun, submachine guns, machine guns, assault rifles, hand cannons, scout rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, launchers, tactical rifles, and beam rifles. These weapons come in rarity tiers: normal, rare, ultimate, and transcendent. Each weapon class will have a corresponding ammo type attached to them. There is only 4 different ammo types so far in the game. The ammo types are general rounds, special rounds, impact rounds, high power rounds. For the weapon perks, these are the bonus stats your weapons have apart from their base weapon stats. There can only be up to 4 different perks you can have at a time. This goes for both purple and gold rarity weapons. As of right now, the game has not released transcendent weapons, but the category is available when you go to switch weapon types. So that's pretty interesting. All the gold rarity weapons or the ultimate weapons have an added passive perk or unique ability. This can be triggered in combat when you fulfill the role. For the modules and the weapons as a beginner player, this equip recommended modules feature comes in handy and does the job for the majority of the first playthrough, so don't skip out on it. If you want a detailed video for a weapons only guide explaining all these stats in depth, please drop a like to show me that you like this style of video. Moving on to the second section of the Descendants. Each Descendant comes within its own identity, active skills, and a passive skill. They all have 4 different abilities for their active skills. These active skills can be tied to a specific elemental attribute as well as a non-attribute depending on their kit. All Descendants also have a passive skill, and these can be looked over in the icon to the right of the active skill. These passives will pretty much always hint at the playstyle of your Descendant that you will be committing to. Your Descendant has 5 base stats, much like your weapon. These 5 base stats consist of skill power, defense, shield, health points, and mana points. Basically, skill power is the damage and or effectiveness of all 4 of your abilities. Your defense will reduce all incoming firearm attack damage from the enemies, but there's also a soft cap. For max efficiency, make sure your Descendant can go up to 80% of the defense stat. For the shield capacity, this stat is shown above your health bar, a shielding mechanism in the game that can block any incoming damage. You can enhance your shields by equipping modules like these. Your overall health is shown underneath your shield bar and can be increased as well to optimize longer survivability. Just like the shields, you can increase your health through equipping modules. Now a quick side note, keep in mind that you will find yourself regenerating more health in shields in combat since your health orbs do drop constantly upon eliminating enemies. As to the shields, currently there is no shield orbs being dropped from any mobs. That means you need to wait out of harm's way for them to regenerate back to their full shield capacity state. So I personally recommend you invest more of your module capacity slots in health points rather than shields. The last base stat that you have is of course your mana points. This stat goes directly towards all of your ability usage. Depending on each individual ability, you will consume a number of mana points. Certain abilities from certain Descendants don't consume mana points, so make sure to read all your Descendants abilities descriptions to know what you get out of those stats. For example, Glay does not have a shield or mana stat. It is replaced with her own kit's playable need, so once again, take 2 seconds to read or even double read some of these descriptions. I can't stress that enough. The abilities on all the Descendants can consist of any combination of the following elemental attributes and or combat attributes. The 5 elemental attributes are electric, fire, chill, toxic, and non-attribute. The 4 combat attributes are tech, dimension, singular, and fusion. I understand that at first glance things can look complicated, but you have this video to come back to, so you should save it. For starters, you need to know that there is 5 different socket module types. These are the module types: Cerulean, Almandine, Malachite, Zentech, and Rutile. I may have pronounced them wrong, I'm not sure. Correct me in the comments. These socket types will have a perfect fit in various module slots depending on your weapon or Descendant base socket filter. Once you equip a module in the correct slot, the module instantly saves half of that module's capacity cost, therefore saving you more space to equip extra modules where you would want. In the very first slot here, you will see a slot called Skill Modules. Here you can equip any skill specific modules that can change or alter your Descendants abilities. You can further enhance these modules to free up capacity space from your current max capacity. It's usually best to equip this module first, because after it changes your Descendants kit, you can then equip modules to work well off of that skill change. Below the skill module slot, there is a sub module slot. These modules, when equipped, will change your melee animation and add a charged sub attack to that melee hit. After you enhance these modules, it will raise the max module capacity in the module system. You can then apply some extra bonus stats or applied values, and I call them extra or bonus because, for example, any skill power you equip in your modules does not go towards this number here, shown at the bottom right of your inventory. This stat here is your current base skill power from your Descendants level and reactor equipped only. Reason I say current base is because you cannot use any skill power if you don't have any reactor equipped at all. This will reflect with the skill power stat gone if there's no reactor. It will also be absent here in the go to info section of your stats, but after you equip any reactor, any skill power modules you have will then multiply from that reactor's overall skill power shown at the bottom right after you equip a reactor. This further means that the modules themselves are not an overall stat, but rather just a skill specific increase or added value. These stats or values from the modules are directly applied to your abilities. Skill power versus skill power modifier. The skill power, this stat applies to the increase of that current base skill power I mentioned, meaning it will multiply the percentage shown on the module to your base damage output of that skill. Take Blair for example. He has a skill power description on 3 out of his 4 abilities. The one that doesn't have the description of a skill power, the skill power modules will not apply or multiply to this one ability. As for the other 3 abilities, equipping a skill power module will increase your current base damage stat, but like I said before, after applying this module, it will still not reflect on this number right here. In fact, it won't even reflect on the ability descriptions. The only 2 places it shows a percentage being added is here on the left in the applied value section as skill power, or if you go to the go to info section, here it's shown as the base skill power boost ratio. Now why is it only shown in these 2 places? It's beyond me. Also, why is it not described as base skill power boost ratio in the applied value section after applying a skill power module to match both descriptions in the go to info and the applied values section? I don't know. This right here is what I'm referring to. After you equip a skill power module, it'll say base skill power boost ratio, and the skill power right above it is from the reactor. Skill power modifiers adds the percentage, it doesn't multiply. This addition is shown in the ability descriptions. When adding one of these modules, the increase is reflected in green in the ability description, unlike the skill power modules that don't. Let's recap on these 2. Skill power multiplies to the base skill power of your Descendant. Skill power modifier will add to the individual abilities increase in damage. Skill power and skill power modifiers can have module specific elemental attributes as well as combat attributes. These modules will also be ability specific. Aside from these, you can also equip quality of life modules. These include your health, your shields, your defense, your mana points, and some firearm resistances from the enemies as well. Some gold or ultimate modules will also have changes to your grappling hook, so keep an eye out for those. Moving to the right side, we have reactors and external components. For the reactors, it's the most important part of your inventory because, like I mentioned before, without this you cannot use any skill sets or skill powers. Knowing that, it means that we need to first look at the rarities. Just like the weapons, they come in levels 1 through 100 and the rarity type blue, purple, gold, and red. The reactors enhance your Descendants elemental attribute. They also further boost a bonus for your combat attributes. Starting with the blue reactors at the top of the skill power, at the top you have skill power and a sub attack power, which is your melee damage. The skill power, like we mentioned before, will reflect in your Descendant stats here at this time. This is your new base skill power. For the sub attack power, this stat reflects the amount of damage done with your sub attack, meaning your melee damage. The blue rarity reactors will only come with boost ratios. The power boost ratios will enhance the elemental and combat attributes we have talked about in the past. At the bottom here, these will also show you added skill power damage numbers to your abilities with this number. The purple reactors, they have more stats, specifically starting with optimization condition. This stat reflects the type of gun you will need to have equipped in one of the 3 slots from your inventory to fulfill an extra bonus of skill power. For these purple reactors, the correct gun equipped will have you reach an additional 140% skill power on top of the skill power shown here on top of the reactor. As for the miss skill power, this only means you don't have an additional skill power boost in your loadout, so everything stays the same with only this number up here being applied. Nothing decreases if not met, but of course it's always recommended to match the weapon to the reactor to get the best out of your reactor. For the gold reactors or the ultimate reactors, they too are very similar to the purple reactors. The gold reactors will also have an optimization condition, but be careful. Although yes, this is an extra 160% increase of skill power versus 140% increase This optimization condition is locked to apply only when you have the gun equipped in your hands ready to shoot, unlike the purple reactors where you can have it holstered and still be receiving the 140% bonus. For the gold reactors, once you holster the weapon in the optimization condition, it will take away the 160% bonus to your skill power, meaning if you are mid-combat and you need to switch weapons due to wanting to use a specific weak point type weapon, like we had mentioned in the beginning of this video, as soon as you swap your weapons, this optimization condition instantly drops you down to 100% of your skill power, instead of staying and keeping 160% bonus you have intended to keep when equipping the gold reactor with this specific weapon. A side note here is if you're still playing the game on normal mode and you have yet to complete the game, my suggestion is stick with the purple reactors until you beat the main storyline, and then after unlocking hard mode you can most likely then start a build with your loadouts with more specific details with gold reactors for specific purposes and specific scenarios. On the right side of the inventory, right below the reactors, you have the external components section. In this section, these components are an added bonus to overall stats and quality of life features. The external components are divided into 4 different components: auxiliary power, sensor, memory, and processor. Each component comes with a main stat and a substat in the specific component. Some of these substats include increased gold, Kuiper, and consumable drop rates, down but not out extensions, which means you're in a knocked position and the longer bleed out time, added health, shield, defense, and mana points. All kinds of resistances to the elemental attributes as well. This section of your loadout is nice to top off at any state of the game. The best part of these components is the fact that they can come in sets of 4 to then further keep enhancing your Descendant skill power or weapon stats. Find all 4 to equip on that specific Descendant's attributes and your stats will then all be maxed out.